So welcome to everybody. It's a great pleasure to have our speaker here, Ellen Sklaver, today. We tried to schedule her in May and had to postpone, so it's just wonderful that she made it here today. I don't know if you want to take your mask off.
I will. Yes, definitely.
Just for those online, if you want to ask a question, I think most of you have joined us before. If you remember, we're actually video recording this and it's going to go out on our YouTube channel into the ether eventually. So if you want to protect your privacy, just keep your camera off. You can ask a question through chat and then I will read that later on. Or you could ask a question if you really don't mind at all. You can, open your camera and just ask the question openly. But again, you will be in the recording for time immemorial, as it were. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our wonderful speaker, Ellen Sklaver, and she is a spiritual coach, but she does many, many things. She uses different modalities, including the law of attraction, which she's going to be talking to us today about, as well as Neuro Linguistic Programming, PSYCH-K, and meditation to create energetic shifts. She had an out-of-body experience a number of years ago that changed her life and led her down the path of law of attraction. And she was telling me earlier that the law of attraction is working in her life right now because she has a little bit of a cough, but she's had it for a long time. And that's something, but you can take over there and tell us the connection between law of attraction and what happens to you physically. So again, I'd like to hand it over to Ellen and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Out here in person today. So.
And thank all of you for coming. I'll give you some space so I can take off my mask.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So Angie was saying I have a little bit of a cold or a raspy voice and a little bit of cough. But it's a great example of the law of attraction in action, because one of my most difficult challenges in my life is to be able to speak up and to express myself, my voice. So whenever I have a tendency to get sick or anything, it always surfaces or shows up in my voice. So that is part of that law of attraction in action. What do I have to learn from my voice always, kind of getting raspy or the cough coming? It's an opportunity for me to learn to go within and how can I better express myself? So I don't think I'm contagious, but we want to always play it cautiously. So that's why I'm wearing the mask. I probably will after the event is over. But for now, I get it off. Take it off. So the other thing that I would like to share is, even though I might have a little bit of a cold or a cough, I have never felt better, at least emotionally, than I did way back in when I was about 35. So I could say that I feel better being vulnerable, expressing my age of 65, feel much better now than I ever did at 35. And part of the reason that I'm here today is that I don't want you to have to spend 35 years or 30 years of your life so that you can live a joyous life. Because we can do that, and we could do that in an instant, really. So if you could take a look at the screen, and this is what we call, this is a world famous awareness test done by Daniel Simons and Christopher Chavis back in 1999. It is amazing because you can look at this, you can look at other ones like this many times, and you'll see. If anybody who has seen this video before, quietly, keep it to yourself. But your point and your object now is to count how many times the players wearing white pass that basketball. And we'll see if we get the same number, because it's very difficult. So let's tap on this. Okay, so count how many players wearing white pass the basketball. Okay, let me pause that. and see if, okay. So hopefully the people on the online have seen it as well. So everybody gets a chance.
That's what it should be.
Okay, so everybody gets a chance now. Count. Focus and count. Okay, so do we have some numbers? Anybody can? 14, 15, 17? Isn't it? It's quite interesting. We're getting 14, and now, okay. We are getting so many different numbers. I mean, that's really amazing. You watch this video over and over again. All right, so I'm gonna continue to play it. I don't know how many people got different numbers at home, but we got 14, 17, 15. Let's see what the answer was. 15. Yep. Okay, here's the point. But did anybody see the gorilla?
No. Oh my God.
Yeah, before.
Yes. But those, exactly. Yeah. Isn't it? That is how, yes. Yes. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing again. And I don't know how many people at home also got that, but yes. But what's very, very interesting about this video is, again, if I can get into, is that gorilla in the room. And it's about, okay, so most people did not see the gorilla. They saw the players in the white shirts. We're all so busy focusing on the players in the white shirt that we miss the obvious. So it's like a metaphor as well. It's not about the players in the white shirt. It's not really about the gorilla. It's about our perspective in life, right? What is it that we are focusing on life? And like this, there was a gentleman in our room here that said, I've seen that. I was looking for the gorilla. It is obvious. Once we do see the gorilla, we can watch that movie again, and we will always see the gorilla. So your perspective, once you make a shift in your life and look at it or view it in a different way, you can never go back. You know, a metaphor or a reframe, we call it sometimes, will shift your perspective and move you in the right direction. So to move on a little bit, let me tell you a little bit about my story and exactly my issues with my voice. It started when I was a very, very young girl, at the age about 9. And I wish I could share a picture of my kindergarten years. My mom happened to take a picture. There's a boy sitting there, and he's kind of like so happy-go-lucky, and I'm sitting there going, oh. You know, I just didn't want to go to school. I was so quiet. I had at least my sister and a brother at home. And being the oldest, I just did not want to go to school. I felt safe at home. I did not feel safe traveling out. So by the time that I got to the age of 9, you know, I would just sit quietly in school, wouldn't want to eat in school, wouldn't want to go to the bathroom. You know, I just wanted to come home where I could be safe. But it was in the 1960s, and there was this young boy who took a liking to me. Again, he was about the same age as I was, and he would, you know, he would ask me if I wanted to be his girlfriend. What it's like to be a girlfriend or a boyfriend in the 3rd grade, right? So I would sit there quietly, and he was a very quiet kid too. And we would exchange little trinkets, little love notes. You know, let me see. I'm trying to think of some of the other things that we would exchange, but just little things here and there, a gift, a love note, a trinket. And then one day after school, he asked me if I wanted, he was like, I got something I want to show you. Can you go into the woods with me? And I was like, no, I really don't want to. My friends were with me. My sister was with me by that time. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And he'd go, but I just want to show you something. Just want to show you something. And he kept on being persistent about it. Now, again, with the law of attraction, it's like I was listening to my heart and my intuition saying, no, I didn't want to go. But there's that little hope saying, and, just show me. And curiosity, right? With curiosity, I guess always kills the cat. So eventually I just said to my friends, all right, just stay here. I'm only going to be a minute. And I followed him into the woods. And once I got into the woods, that's when he began to assault me. He's demanded things and, really started assaulting me. And I would just very quietly go, no, meekly, but he would insist and do the little threatened behavior. It's really, again, I can't fathom how another 9-year-old could know that kind of stuff. But obviously, I know he had older brothers. I know from experiences of other people that, he was capable of doing this kind of stuff to me. And being so quiet, being so shy, I ended up at some point falling down. That's like the last thing I remember. It was falling down on the ground or passing out. And from there, I began to have what I felt was like, or now know as an outer body experience. Because the next thing I knew, I felt like I could see myself on the ground and I could feel it, but I felt eerie and celestial. It felt different. It felt like I could kind of look around in a 360-degree angle and see everything around me, almost at the length of what the woods were like, the trees were like. And I could look over and I could see my house about maybe a mile away. And yet I knew, it was still a wooded area, but I could still feel it or see it. And yet, like I said, I felt like a nothingness. There wasn't any pain. There wasn't any anger or any kind of emotion, just a nothingness. Sometimes we could call it a no-thingness. And it felt fine, until I was kind of swept back into my body, feeling like a kick and a jolt to get up. And at that point, there was another young boy coming from the woods. And this kid that had assaulted me didn't want anything more to do with me and just, again, threatened, don't tell this to anyone. And finally, I was dismissed to go. And so I gathered myself and I walked out of the woods. And when I got there wasn't even any of my friends, my sisters, they had all left. So I'm not even sure how long I was lying in the woods or how long this experience was going on. And again, the law of attraction works in such mysterious ways because with this experience, I was walking home feeling so angered and so upset and going, I'm never going to remember this. I'm never going to forget this. I'm never going to forget this. And there were tears coming down myself. All the emotions were finally surfacing. And then as I got halfway and almost to my house, I then realized that there's going to be a curiosity factor. What did he want? What did he do? What was going on? And I shifted the gear to, I'm never going to forget this, to, I will always remember this. I will always remember this. Now, forget it. Remember it, forget it. Remember it, forget it. And by the time I got to the house, the emotions had shut down. And I just got there and they asked, and I was like, nothing happened, and dismissed the whole thing and actually buried the whole thing. It was there in my subconscious mind, but buried as far as the memory goes. So I didn't really remember it, but my subconscious had remembered it. And it stayed there with me for close to that 30 years. So as I got into the middle age school, into high school and whatnot, I still had those buried feelings of anxiety, the buried feelings, or the feelings now of loneliness, and feelings of, let me just make sure I have all my notes. And feelings of anxiety, loneliness, quietness. I was still very, very much quiet. So in high school, I happened to make just a few friends. I'd sit most of the time quietly, and there were a couple of friends that took a liking to me. But these friends now ended up being like bullies. I don't know if you had any of those. This one particular friend that I had, if you want to call her a friend, would like to make me her own personal assistant. She would go, Ellen, I need my pencils sharpened. You don't mind? Can you sharpen my pencils? And I'd get up and I'd sharpen pencils. Ellen, I'm really, really hungry. I'd like an extra dessert. Would you go get me an extra dessert? And I'd go get an extra dessert. Ellen, you're not going to drink your milk, right? I'll take that milk. So, and she would take the milk. And it was Ellen, 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 Ellen. Well, I finally got the courage again to say no. But I said it very, very, very meekly, no. And with the meek no came a little kick under the table when she was sitting beside me one day. And I said, that's it. And I gave her a punch on top of the table. Didn't think about the on top of the table part. And that's when the teacher noticed me punching, not the kicking, and I got sent to the principal's office. So what happened was I learned a lesson that day. It's better to have a friend than no friends at all. And it's better to be giving of myself, right? To give. And the way I put it, if I can recall the words, I feared not being liked more than having bad friends. I think that was the best way to put it. Time went on and I was in college. And college, I decided to go to a local college and not live away. Again, there was still that anxieties and fears. I'm going to go to a local college. So I went to a local college. And one of the things at the local college meant walking from the place of college. Again, it was about maybe a mile. So walking a mile from the college to my father's store. They owned a store, my father and family. And then he would drive me home. Again, safest way to handle things. By now, I did manage to make a few little friends. And I would be more of the follower than the leader. But still traveling from the place of where the college was to my father was like a nightmare. I would walk really quietly, not talking to everyone, keeping my eyes open for any kind of strangers. And I would sometimes even look for somebody that looked friendly, maybe somebody that had kids. However, not too many people with kids were in the combat zone, if you know what that is, the X-rated area. And so I would just quickly walk all the way until I got to my father's place of store. And my heart was pounding but I would do this almost every day, and then we'd take either the train home together or we'd take a ride home. But I felt safe, in his arms. So that's the way my life went. But I also started putting on some extra weight. It was a way to protect myself against any guys in my life. I was still fearing men in my life. And I lived in fear. I still had that anger. A lot of times if something came up, I tend to see myself getting angry really quickly and not realizing that. And I still had a lot of fears of loneliness. So I followed the group most of the time when we did have something to do. It still was very hard for me to even go out after night and have a night out with these friends. Most times I'd end up getting home, and by the time I got home, I'd have what I called a love affair, but it was with the toilet, because I would use recreational drugs like marijuana or alcohol to help me get through those moments. So, so most nights ended up in a affair with the toilet. I realized by then, I really wasn't listening to my heart. I wasn't enjoying my life. And so by the time I got to the age of 35, I had made such a mess of my life. I was making so many wrong mistakes. I had this short career in the graphic design world. Then I kind of liked, but because it wasn't right for me, I ended up marrying Mr. Safe instead of Mr. Right, and that was ending up having a child in wedlock, and eventually, I was in an unhappy relationship, overworked, depressed. And I started to think, I want something more, I want something different. And as my child started to got a little bit older, I realized I needed to make a change in my life. I really needed to make that change in my life. And I started to seek some therapy. And I don't know how many of you have sought therapy or not, but the traditional therapy at that time, and it might still be, is cognitive behavioral therapy. And what you do, or CBT, what you do with CBT is you unhatch these issues or even the trauma that was surfacing. It happened to surface like within one of the first sessions. You would relive it over and over and over and over again. It eventually turned into a PTSD situation. And it took many months. It took even years to start to unhatch the memories, start to unhatch what was going on. That I'm going to remember and I'm going to forget it, finally surfaced. And at that point, I realized, sure, it was great. It was some relief. But is this what I really want in my life? I still was very, very unhappy. Managed to work through some of that anxiety, but still very lonely, still very unhappy. And that's kind of when my perspective in life changed. I had set out to the universe, not realizing, that there is a magical universe out there, and you ask and which I will be talking about, the law of attraction, how it works. But I was putting out there, I want something better in my life. And what showed up in my life were 2 movies. I was binge watching movies. That's how I enjoyed my free time. I sat down and I watched a movie called The Law of Attraction. Actually, it was called The Secret. I should say it's The Secret by Byron Katie. Not Byron. Sorry, wrong name. Rhonda Burns. I've done some work with Byron Katie too. Rhonda Burns. And then right after that movie, I was like, oh, wow, this is pretty interesting. Ask and you shall receive. And what am I asking for, and wanting to know a little bit more about the law of attraction, really wanting to know about the law of attraction. But the law of attraction, if you just read that book, which is a great book, by the way, the movie follows the book to the T. Fantastic. I really like it. Was all that movie itself and that book itself was meant on a business level for people in business to know how to utilize business to get a better career, a better business for themselves. The piece that was missing was the next movie that I had binge watched right after that. And that was called Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh. Now, his book and his movie are two different things. His movie was about himself being homeless after having a failed marriage, a broken neck, and becoming homeless because he was out of work. And it took him from that point in his life all the way to becoming a spiritual messenger and a best-selling author. So after I saw that movie, it's like a light bulb went off in my head, and I needed to know more. I really wanted to know more about the law of attraction, and I really wanted to know more about this conversations with God. And I put the two pieces together. I started reading books about the law of attraction and learning everything I could. There was a meetup group on the law of attraction, and I started reading Neil Donald Walsh's book. And for me, I started to understand it. I started to, what I call is have that spiritual awakening. All the pieces came together. And I was fascinated with the law of attraction. There were tears that rolled over I remember going out for a bite to eat afterwards, and I just still had tears rolling down my face. So I was able to feel again. And I ended up divorcing Mr. Safe. I went to reapply in college at that point for a psychology degree. And then eventually, even later in my life, I ended up getting my coaching certificate in life coaching, but more in spiritual coaching. And I ended up learning about quieting my mind, following my heart, and what I call dancing with the universe. I learned about this law of attraction, of which I would like to share it with you today. So that's my story. But let me share. Let's see if we can get to the sharing some of the screens and sharing what is the law of attraction. Let's see if we get to it. Let me just move on to the couple of screens here. Okay.
There we go.
Okay. Thank you. And just make sure, yeah, we are sharing with everybody. And everybody can see up on the screen as well. So the law of attraction, in my words, law of attraction, most of the time you'll hear ask, receive, and believe. Those are what Esther Hicks, who channels Abraham, if you want to use the best word, channeling. She doesn't like using channeling, but she channels Abraham. Fantastic woman, really. She really is interesting to watch. Yeah, and I would advise, or suggest that you follow and see some YouTubes on her. But their motto is ask, believe, receive. I like to bring it more into the ABCs: awareness, breath, and choice. And we'll go into a little bit more of that. Yes. Okay, we'll change your, okay.
Presentation mode.
Okay.
No, that's end. Should be in full. That's good enough.
Okay.
We have.
Yeah. All right. So we have awareness, breath, and choice. most people would live life like this. I probably lived life like this. And as you can see, it says, as a kid, I can't wait to grow up. Can't wait to grow up. Then you're in high school. I can't wait to go to college. I can't wait to go to college and study what I like. When you get into college, oh, I can't wait to work on that. I just can't wait to work on what I like. Yeah, I want to work on what I like. And then by the time you're working on what you like, oh, I am slowly dying here. We're too focused on what we don't want, or living in the future, that we fail to be living in the moment. Or what is it that we do want? And, I don't discredit anybody for living this way. Most of us do, because our brains are wired that way. We're wired to detect fear. And so we live in a fear-based world because of the way the brain is naturally wired to think. So our job is to become aware. Okay, what you think about, this is the law of attraction quote, is what you think about, you bring about. So our thoughts are linked into what we're feeling. Then our feelings become our words and we start expressing it. Our words become our beliefs and we start believing what we're saying. And then once we believe what we're saying, our actions show that, and this becomes our life experience. So the key is to start to become aware of your thoughts. Your thoughts will, which is, I can't say it's the easiest thing to stop and start thinking, what are my thoughts? What am I thinking? What am I thinking? But the thoughts are very linked to our feelings. And our feelings are surfacing emotions. So when we're thinking, we're feeling. What are we feeling? Stop to check. What are we feeling? Catch those words. If we say, I can't, whatever we're saying, or I am, whatever we say next is what we believe about ourselves. If I go ahead and say, I am heavy, I'm believing I'm heavy. And what I'm going to consistently receive is an image of me being heavy. I'll look in pictures and I'll go, yeah, I'm heavy. So I will believe what I'm saying. So we got to stop and think, do I really want to give that message to myself? Do I want to feel that way? Or do I want to start thinking, I am healthy? All right. I might not want to say I am thin. I may not even believe that I am thin. And we'll get into a way to help shift those thoughts. But I would rather believe I am healthy and work on I am healthy. Do I actually believe I am healthy? But it's a much healthier statement for me to be saying that to myself versus, I am heavy. I am ugly. I am this. Anytime you hear yourself saying I am, you're going to own those next words. I can't. Well, we don't hear the can't. So sometimes what we're saying, I can't do, or I don't. For instance, if you say, I don't have money, I can't buy that. Well, you're stuck in the don't have money. And the feeling is, I don't have it. And you're stuck in money, but you're not stuck in money in a positive way. You're stuck in money in a way that's not working for you. So what are the emotions that are linked to the fact when you think about your monetary situation? And again, we'll get to questions if anybody has questions and working them. So the next step is that breathe. If we happen to catch a thought, and if we happen to catch the feeling that's going with the thought, and we want to cancel it out, we could stop. Okay, we're noticing those thoughts. We stop and we breathe. The breath recenters us and brings us back into a moment. Breathe. Take a breath now. Just breathe it in. Feel it. If you're feeling anything or have been feeling anything, what does it feel like when you take a diaphragmatic breath in from the stomach? Like you're filling up a bubble, a balloon full of air. Breathe. It has a tendency to quiet the mind. The brain that's telling you it's not safe around here, it's not safe. It helps you to recenter you and bring you back. This gives you an option or an opportunity to reflect. And then you can choose words that better serve you, actions that better serve you. Maybe it's just a way to quiet the mind. I like the equation here that emotion is just energy in motion, emotion. So whatever emotions we are expressing, we're utilizing that. If we want to express anger, we're going to see anger. It's going to be charged up emotion. So emotion is just our energy in motion. And we have a choice to shift that. The interesting thing that I learned about anger, is the fact that it's expressing something that you're not being, some way of not being treated fairly. So whenever you're feeling anger, it's only that key to say, I'm not being treated fairly. And we have an opportunity to quiet and to reflect on, why am I feeling like I'm not being treated fairly? And a lot of times, if we hold it back or hold it in, the anger, we're really covering up that sadness that goes with it. So it's an underlying sadness that you're really feeling. Now we get the C, to choose clarity. Once we're able to stop, breathe, reflect, it gives us an opportunity to choose. And if we're unclear, if we're not aware of what we're thinking or feeling, or those constant thoughts that are going over and over and over again, we're going to get unclear connections. We're not really going to know what we want. And a lot of times, people aren't really clear on what they want. A lot of times it's much easier to say, I know what I don't want, but that could be a cue to help you to know what it is that you do want. Many times it's the exact opposite. So if you're unclear on what you don't want, shift it, take away those don'ts, take away whatever it is that you don't want, and just turn it into the positive. You may not believe it, but it's still a step in helping you to seek the clarity. The little quote is really, I like to read this little quote on the bottom. When you build on the positive, it says to the negative, you no longer have a place here. So do you know what you want? This is an opportunity right now for you to even kind of gather some thoughts of what is it that you do want, and to ask yourself some questions about it when you get there. What will you see when you have this? Can you get a mental picture of what you will see? Almost as if you were behind a movie camera, looking on the stage, looking at a play. What do you see when you are there? You can even take a moment now to close your eyes. Is there something that you want? Can you visualize it or see what it is that you want? Can you bring up a picture? What is it that you will hear? What will people be saying to you when you have whatever it is that you're desiring? What will you be saying to yourself? And more importantly, what will you feel? Can you even at this point feel what that desire is that you might want in life? So it's putting yourself there, stepping into a new spot. What we call in PSYCH-K, give the credit to PSYCH-K, is we call this a VAC to the future. A visual, an auditory, and a kinesthetic. And if we can put it all together and really step into it, we can start to create our future. Because what you're thinking and what you're feeling now surfaces up in the future. Sometimes it's really, really quickly. Sometimes it takes time. Certain things, like, for instance, let me give you a story. When I wanted to move here from Boston, because I was living in Boston most of my life, I would not let anything get in my way of moving here. Once that magic had begun, I wouldn't let anything get in my way. There was a transition going on at work, but I still wouldn't let it go, get in my way. The new boss that was in, that I was going to be working for, would say to me, it was so interesting. She'd say, "We don't really have the perfect position for you, but we don't want you to leave. So create the perfect job for yourself, and a perfect role for yourself in this new library." And I said, "Fine, thank you." And I take the paper and I kind of put it aside because that's not where I wanted to be. So I kept on putting it aside, and time would get closer, and time would get closer, and time would get closer. And nothing was kind of happening, because I wasn't doing anything. And it was what I wanted. I wanted to leave. I wanted to leave that job, and I wanted to move to the DC area. I wanted to be closer to my daughter, grandkids, and I didn't really want to be working at the office anymore. So as we're getting close to this big move and moving in, and I was planning on packing up boxes, I'm closing it up, I'm doing the best I can. I finally decided I need to take the step, and I need to go to my boss and have a meeting with her, because we need to know what my position was going to be in this place, even though I knew I didn't want to be there. And so I went and I met with her, and then I said to her, "What is it that you want?" I know what I want. "What is it that you want?" And she started saying, "Well, I need another head librarian, but you're not really qualified for that. So that's not going to work. And I need somebody to be an assistant, but you're way overqualified for that. So that's not quite what I want." And so she really couldn't distinguish what it was she wanted. And every position that I was qualified for, it was already filled. It was already taken. So I said, "Then let me go." And how often do you tell a boss, "Hey, let me go"? And she said, "What? No, I can't let you go." She was the one being brought to tears at this point. I said, "Let me go. It's okay. Let me go." And so she closed the door, and we had a little bit more of a further conversation. And by the time we got through, I said, "Let me go. But don't forget to ask for a severance package." And that's exactly what happened. And she said, "Well, what date do you want to leave?" I said, June 30th, 2017. That was my last day of work. That was the day that I kept on thinking in my head that I was going to be leaving. And it happened. It transpired. So it was a quite interesting story. So again, what are the challenges? What do you constantly face as a challenge in your life? Many people have the 5 above there, the weight, or health, a career or money, love or relationships. They seem to be the most in the way of challenges. So think about it. What are your challenges? Do you have challenges in your life? What's constantly showing up for you? Like I said, I'm constantly having issues with my voice. It shows up for me quite a bit. It's that signal saying I need to speak up. I need to speak my truth. Or like you heard in my story, I need to take care of myself first before others. So that's a big message to me. When I get sick, I got to know. Sometimes that message to me is I need to slow down. But I listen to my body. I listen to the inner messages that are coming in. I listen to my thoughts. I listen to my words. And if I don't, I get caught up in that whirlwind again. We can create anything we want, good or what we call maybe not so good. Law of attraction is always working in your favor or unfavor, however your thoughts. You're either moving towards love and it's working in your direction, or you're moving towards fear, but it's still working in your direction. If you're constantly thinking about fearful things or the don'ts and whatnot, that's what you're creating. But we have the power to shift it to a better mindset. Change that perspective. Find that gorilla. I'd like to tell you about Jane. Jane was a client of mine. She had many, many challenges. By the age of 16, I believe she was diagnosed with lupus, still has fibromyalgia, bone spurs. She's been under several operations and surgeries, just recently had another knee surgery, and was constantly dealing with the pain, daily pain. But when Jane came to me, she still desired to go places, to do things with the family, to not be the one sitting back. You know, a lot of times her family would even say to her, you can't do that. You can't go climbing up that mountain. You can't go doing this. And she wanted to make a change. So we worked together and we worked on the mindset of what can you do? Okay, we're seeing things that you can't do, but what can you do? What can you do to make your life better? And it started with the mindset. It started with making a change in the mind. It started with the determination of, I'm going to go to Alaska and I'm going to climb that mountain and I'm going to see that water at Mendelssohn Glacier. It was one of the glaciers. I can't remember the name of it. And she was determined to do that. Well, it just happened as she was making that mind shift and determination to do that. Simultaneously, what came up was a gym that was close by. It was kind of like a rec center that was close by. And in it had a whole pool, indoor and outdoor. It had a gym. It had classes, yoga classes. It had everything. And this mindset just shifted her into, I can go swimming and I can work through the pain by swimming and taking care of myself that way. And she started swimming. She started using the gym. She started from the swimming. She was able to take some of those yoga classes and bend and stretch. And then from there, she was able to start using the treadmill, and she started walking the treadmill. And she started doing it more on the daily basis. I'd like to tell you, this is her. She took a trip to the Great Canyon in May of 2023. And she hiked a lot. Now, there's still days when she's in pain, but she continues to work through it. She turned her life around by just making that shift. I could say, you know, happy to say that I helped her, but I really believe that the coaching I do is guiding you to help yourself, guiding you to see what you're not seeing in your story and helping you to shift your story. And I think that's exactly what she did. So here's another little exercise that we can do. And, you know, feel free to do it with me for a little bit. It's interesting. It's definitely a great exercise in helping to quiet your mind. So if you're having overwhelming thoughts, to quiet your mind. It's part of receiving. So gently wishing is looking at your desires versus your needs. If you're desiring something, you're not so attached to it as if you need it. When we need something, we're attached to needing it or not having it. So it's better to be having a desire versus a need, releasing that tension, attachment. Sometimes what helps is to act as if you already have it, just like we did with the back, to act as if it's already done. Imagine it in your heart. If we have a thought that's running through our head or feelings that are running through our head, we're feeling it in our head. We're imagining it in our head, right? We're actually not feeling it. What are we feeling in our heart? If our head and our heart are both feeling and thinking the same thing, we're in alignment with that. And again, if I'm thinking I'm fat and I'm feeling I'm fat, I am in alignment with fat. All right. But again, using that same example, if I'm thinking I'm healthy and feeling unhealthy, I'm not in alignment. And what's going to come up surface more is the feeling of what's going on in the heart. And more of what I'm feeling in the heart is going to keep surfacing until my heart and my head can be in alignment. So if I choose to get that rest, if I choose to drink more water, if I choose to eat healthier, and I make those shifts, my heart and my head are going to be in alignment. And that release is going to happen. I'm going to feel healthier. I'm going to shift the way I'm feeling and taking care of myself. And that will be what my reality will look like. That's what I need to do. So if you notice, and you can always look up the Wayne Cook's hookup. This is also a process that we do use in PSYCH-K. However, in PSYCH-K, I also do messel testing. So it's a little bit of a difference. But this process here, the Wayne's hookup, helps to quiet the mind. And I suggest that you try it now. Take your arms and just put them out, but put the palms face out. And then put one hand over the other. Again, with PSYCH-K, we actually do some balancing to, does the right one go over the left, or the left one go over the right? So that it's a little bit different of the process, but the same. Do whatever feels comfortable to you right now. And then you can either bring it to your heart and sit with it that way. Some people like to just let it sit on the lap, whatever feels more comfortable for you. And the next thing that needs to be done also is to cross the legs, just the ankles, right over left, left over right. And then I just invite you to take a couple of moments, and I'm going to do it too, because I can already feel that shift. And notice how it starts to quiet your system down. Help yourself to go inward. What are you feeling right now? Notice your thoughts? Are they quieting? And I could sit here for so long that I don't want to get out of it. When you're ready, only at your pace, and I'll give everybody some time, you can unhook and release. It's just a little toolbox in helping you to become more present. The tools in the toolbox, I call them. So I want to talk a little bit about inspired action. I believe Abraham says inspired action is action that you cannot not take, which uses a lot of nots, but you're so excited about something that you just go for it without almost thinking. You take that action. Jane knew that she wanted to make that change in her life, and that gym surfaced, and she was just so inspired to join it, to get swimming, to start feeling physically healthy again. So it's different, right? The inspired action pulls you in to where you're playful and you're joyous, you're energized. You can feel the difference versus that uninspired action. I have to do this. I have my job. I have to go to work. I need to do that. You might hear those words. I need to do. There's deadlines. So sometimes the action is unmotivated, but if you don't go to work, if you don't do your job, or don't meet those deadlines, we're being motivated by the opposite. We need to get it done, or there's going to be consequences. There'll be negative actions that take place. So look for the inspired action. That's the inspired action. That's the piece that helps the law of attraction to move into action. So in summary, we talked about the ABCs: awareness, breath, and choice. First step with the law of attraction is always, always, always becoming aware of the thoughts, the words, your actions, your emotions. And to go from I can't to I can just takes a moment. It's breath. It's breath. It's bringing yourself back to the present. If we're thinking about our past, we're usually feeling the regret, the guilt, the shame, the coulda, woulda, shouldas. We don't want to should on ourselves. If you're thinking about the future and you're going into the future, usually it's coming with a lot of fear and worry. We don't know what's going to happen. All we have is the right here and the right now, the present. When we're in the present, all is well. We're breathing, we're alive. We have an opportunity to make a choice, which comes to the C. Become clear on what it is that you want. When you can get through the A and the B, you have that opportunity to become clear. Utilize a VAC. Sit there and envision what it is you might want. And if you don't know what you want, write it down. Take away those don'ts and this and whatnot. And change it, shift it. I had another client. We played around with switch words, and that's another thing that you could look up online, switch words. And every time she would be driving to work, there was a anger that would come through and fear and, all these emotions. And what she realized, the underlying anger was the fear that was coming through. She was afraid that, accidents or whatnot, and, crazy drivers and whatnot. So we came up with a switch word. What would you like instead? Notice when you're feeling fear while you're driving and switch it. And she said, I'd like to switch it with safety. So anytime she got on the road and started into work, she'd get that sense of fear, notice the fear, notice the word. She would literally go, fear, fear. But then she'd go, switch. And then she'd go, safe, safe. I want to feel safe. I want others to feel safe. And she'd switch it. She'd just go, recognize the word fear because she was feeling it, and go, safe, safe, safe. And she'd say that. And eventually she would just be blessing everybody as she was driving. Safe, you're safe, you're safe, you're safe. And she would feel so much better when she got into work. She wasn't getting into a stressed job of which she had, feeling stressed already from her travels. She was feeling calm and relaxed and safe. Receive. If you're able to let go of the outcome, right? If you turn it into a desire instead of a need, we can let go. If you're having a hard time letting go, just be grateful for what you have. You could change it into a place of gratitude. I am grateful that everyone was safe on my journey to work. I'm grateful. I'm grateful because helps gratitude to become even a little bit more heartfelt. I am grateful because, use the word because. A lot of people use gratitude journals. I don't know if anybody here uses gratitude journals or not, but add the because and keep writing or thinking until you can actually feel the gratitude. We want to feel it. We want to feel it in the heart, no matter what it is. We want to, if it's fear, we'll work through the fear. Ask the mind, what is it? What are you afraid of? Sit there in that position or quietly and have a conversation with yourself. What is it that I'm afraid of? And then take that inspired action. If you're really feeling it, take that inspired action. Go with it. Act as if you have to. But listen to the heart. Some people are still stuck. It happens. Sometimes learning the law of attraction isn't an overnight thing, but it can be. A lot of times what I hear usually from clients or past experiences, people have a tendency to get impatient. Well, I put that out there. Why isn't it happening now? It's the impatience. I want it now, right? But it's sometimes, depending on what it is you're creating, that story that I shared about work, it didn't just happen overnight. That process happened about 2 or 3, 4, maybe even 6 months in the making. And I kept on, like what I said, worked with the universe, danced. When I heard something, I was like, take it and go with it. I moved towards it. But if it was, what kind of position do you want? Just go for it. I put it aside. It's like, I don't want that. So I learned how to dance. When people said, well, if you were going to be let go, you would have been let go a long time ago. And they definitely would have, they're not going to give you a severance package. But I didn't listen to that. And I just had the patience. And I knew it in my heart that I could make this happen. With impatience sometimes comes that self-sabotage. Okay, this is not working. I'm not going to do this. And we self-sabotage. Sometimes, just like for me, something is buried in that subconscious part of ourselves. There's only 1%. If you can imagine an iceberg, there's only 1% that's really part of the conscious brain. and about 98 or 2% conscious. 98% is under the surface. We're not even aware of it. If we were so in tune to what's going on in that subconscious memory, we probably couldn't function. That's why we have, getting dressed in the morning, we're putting it on and we're getting dressed. And we don't even know if we put on our foot in the left side first or the right side first. We're unconscious about it. We just do it. It becomes a habit. When we first learned to ride a bike, we're very conscious, or learning to drive, very, very conscious. But how many of us drove here today and didn't quite remember the streets that we were on or the traffic lights that we saw? We become unconscious, but that's okay. Our mind is wired to do that. We can't function knowing everything, believing everything. That's why we had a hard time seeing that gorilla in the world, in the room, because we were so focused on those white shirts. So we might self-sabotage ourselves. And how do I do it? The nasty how. How do I do it? How do I do it? We can leave that part sometimes to someone else, to a greater thing out there, a universe. Those, what Mike Dewey calls blessed hows. We don't need to. If there's a step that you can take, an action piece that you could take it. But if you've done everything you can in your power to do what you need to do, then it's time to let it go. Let that magic come to you. Let the gym find its way. Let the movies come to you like they did to me and open my eyes. It's not a coincidence that you're all here. You all needed some sort of peace and some sort of word, something to help you make a shift in your life. So it'll come to you. We don't need to get caught up on the how do I do it. It'll come. You have to have the faith. Sometimes it just takes faith. And if you can't, well, I'm here. I'm here to help. I can give you support that you need, some strategies, lots of tools in my toolbox that will help and bring you to a place where there's self-confidence so that you can achieve what it is that you really need to do. We all need sometimes to be accountable. Sometimes it's the step of being accountable and giving that support. Sometimes when we're not seeing what's under the surface, quiet the mind, meditation techniques, the Wayne's hook up technique. There's different techniques that help to find the strategies that will work for you. So I want to thank you all for being here today. My name's Ellen Sklaver. There's my email. And before I actually end, I want to leave you with a quote. One of my favorite quotes from Henry Ford. But it doesn't want to show up. All right. Well, I can give it to you anyway. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Thank you. Oh, yes. Okay. I might need, here we go. Okay, let's see if we can get that back. Share it.
The card.
The
Contact
yeah,
info.
contact information.
Yeah, contact info.
I don't know, for some reason, PowerPoint just. There we go. Thank you.
So I'd like to thank Ellen, but we do want to open it up for Q&A. So I would like to invite the people online. If you would like to ask a question, please raise your hand. But otherwise, you can actually always send us a question in the chat. I haven't been looking, but please feel free to write us. Those who are actually here, if you'd like to ask a question audibly, you can approach the microphone and ask it directly, or if you'd rather not, there are a couple of pads. So please feel free to write your question. So I would like to ask you, I'm a very sort of concrete person, and some examples I think would be really helpful. Sure. So let's just say that somebody is having difficulty, I mean, you mentioned some health issues. You mentioned money, career, and love relationships. Okay, those are kind of the biggies.
Yes.
And so let's just talk about career. Okay, let's say there's somebody who's looking for they're unhappy with their work life. They're looking for the ideal kind of job. They have obviously, certain talents. So practically speaking, if they want to put into effect the law of attraction, what are some of the things that they need to do? What should they be thinking and doing?
Right. So, well, the first step is to begin to get into that back, begin to get into a visual. What is it that I can do versus what I can't do? What am I thinking? Again, start with the ABCs. Come into that awareness. I want to make a change. All right. So they know what they want. Do they know what kind of career that they're looking for? What, like you said, it's a matter of what talents do I have? What do I enjoy doing that I wouldn't mind doing this as a full-time job? One of the jobs that I ended up getting was working in a library at one point. And I can remember myself. I love being creative. I love being organized, working with books. I loved working with children. I was working in the children's room, and I had a great boss. So another thing is I want to work with people that I love. So starting to envision not the details, but the full picture. Because a lot of times we want to start out general and then begin to work a little bit increments until we're a little bit more focused on the details. And I think a lot of times, people are too focused on what it is that they don't want, what it is that they're stuck in. But if somebody was coming to me with a career issue, what is it that you enjoy doing? Start out really general. And then like with that job, working in a library, I can remember one day going, I'm getting paid to do this. I loved it. I just loved it. It didn't matter what I was getting paid. I enjoyed working in that room. I enjoyed being creative.
So let's take a challenging career like the film industry. Okay. Let's say that there's somebody who feels that they're gifted in writing and they want to direct movies. And they want to be part of that world. They love to create in that particular medium. Yeah. And they go through formal training at school to, learn the mechanics and everything that you're supposed to learn. But it's an incredibly difficult industry to break into. Okay. So you're saying, they need to visualize themselves. Let's say that they want to direct, so they need to visualize themselves on the movie set as a director with actors that they're guiding. The screenwriters, maybe writing themselves, working with a cinematographer. Yeah. I mean, they need to immerse themselves as though they're actually on the job.
Yes, as they're on a job that's perfect for them. One of the first things I heard is a belief that holds them back instantly. In getting into that career is incredibly difficult. All right. So right there, you're stopping yourself going, I can't get a job because that job's too hard to get. So work on that belief that this job is out there for me. Shift the mindset. Do some sort of moving within, working through what's difficult about that. Let it go. Let the difficult part but when you focus more on what it is that I enjoy doing about that job, let's move it into the belief that job is out there for me. It just hasn't found me yet.
Would you also agree that everybody's born with a certain array of talents? They all have shortcomings, but we all have certain talents, certain strengths. And that if we can get in touch with those and actually bring those into reality on this plane, in some ways we're sort of coming into alignment with our life purpose, perhaps our higher self, perhaps our starting to fulfill our biggest potential, becoming our best self. I mean, all of those.
Yes.
And do you think that when people are attracted to a particular, in general, not everyone, but then when they're attracted to a particular area, it's probably because they have that array of talents that works, it makes a good
right
in that. Because usually we're not attracted to things that we're not good at. Would you agree? In general, we tend to gravitate towards the things that sort of inspire us, and part of that inspiration is probably because there's something inside that would fit well, some sort of inner strength, talent, etc.
Yes, I agree with you.
And so, but bringing all of that into fruition is kind of, putting yourself in alignment. Because one of the things you said earlier is aligning the head with the heart, or the heart with the head. Doesn't matter which way it is.
Right.
So, okay.
Yes,
so, we'd love to get your questions, guys. I don't want to be the one just talking all the time.
Everybody
Alan's been
questions?
talking for a long time now. Let's take another example while everybody's being inspired here. All right. Love and relationships. I'd say somebody's feeling very disillusioned. They've been very disappointed. And love is very, very important to them. And they're starting to feel, that they're a certain age, that, if they don't find their love, they're not going to be able to have a family. But the biological clock is starting to tick. That's an issue with women.
Yes.
So someone in that situation desperately, would like to meet someone, but just doesn't feel that it's really happening. Let's say that she's out there and she's dating and just disappointed, not attracting the right kind of partners. How would the law of attraction help someone like that?
Yeah. Well, from what I'm hearing, it's all of what is not working.
Okay.
All right. Again, so the beliefs are stopping her in general. The guy isn't really out there. I want this, but the time is ticking. Am I going to find somebody? I'm hearing all of that desire of, I can't get a man. I can't get somebody in my life. I can't find Mr. Right or Mrs. Right, whoever it may be. So, take that out of the picture. What are some of the qualities that you would like in the partner that you're looking for? What does that look like? What does that feel like? Can you see yourself on a date with someone? Doesn't matter who, but can you see yourself on that date? What are the conversations that you may be having? What are you feeling when you move into a place when you have it? Have you been in a relationship before where you felt happy? You felt content with another person? Are there people in your life that you connect with? So we're not going to look exactly at all those details, but we're going to look at what is the feeling of having it.
What about, I've heard this, making a list of the characteristics or traits that that you would like to find in your ideal partner.
Right.
How does that, by writing those down, how do you think that actually helps?
One of the things they do with the law of attraction is having a vision board. Because a lot of times with a vision board, you're looking through newspapers, magazines, pictures. I did have a person that was a client wanting to find her ideal partner. She had a vision board and she put things in it of aspects that she really liked. I want to travel with this person. I want to, I love somebody who loves to fly. I love aviation. I want, this. And there were aspects of what she wanted and how she wanted to share her life with this person. And one of the things that she put in that vision board, sometimes you could put pictures of herself, and I think she did put a picture of herself, but she put a picture of herself with someone that she at one point in her life could have had an ideal relationship. He wasn't the right person for her, but she loved the way she felt when she was around him. And when she would go to bed, she'd have the board up, and she described it as having rockets of desire. You know, it was always rockets of desire. And she would move into that feeling of rockets in desire. Now, during COVID, it was not the easiest way to find somebody, but there was one person that she had met at an organization that I had also met and knew. And this person, I believe, was trying to reach out to her and wanted her email address for the information. And so I made the connection of just passing on with permission, email address, personal information from one to the other. And this was something that she kind of enjoyed speaking with when she got to see him. But because of COVID, they couldn't see or talk with each other. And eventually, just the communication between A and B, I got out of the picture, and they started conversing back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth. And then she realized, before long, they were sharing so much in their way of intimate detail that they became a couple. And she was feeling exactly what that vision board was showing her. She had found that, and he is her Mr. Right. She's in this relationship. She's just so over the moon. The rockets of desire.
So as far as the client that you showed us, Jane, who had a lot of health issues, so let's talk about health for a second. So she was able to make herself feel a lot better by, doing exercise and working on herself, as it were. So what concretely, other than just starting to do exercise, what do you think, what was the change in her thought process that got her on the road to feeling physically better? What did she change?
Part of it was, I can't do this, I can't do this. But the shift that happened was an event that was going to happen, going to take place. We were on a trip. She was going to be on a trip heading towards Alaska. And she really wanted to be able to hike in Alaska. She knew some of the things that were going to happen. It's kind of like somewhat, almost an example like air wings. People want to change. There's some sort of motivation behind it that says, okay, I do not want to live this way anymore. I want to live this way. And I think that's what happened, was she really wanted to be able to be healthier, to go beyond the, you can't do this, to I can do this.
Gotcha. So people have to really want to change their circumstances.
Yes.
And also you talked a lot about fear. So we do live, so many of us live in fear. We're conditioned to be fearful. I mean, that's this kind of existence most of the time. And so, there is an element of trust. There is a leap of faith of sorts. You did say, let go of the outcome. And so it sounds as though in order to attract the law of attraction, to have your desire met, you do not only have to visualize, hear it, touch it, smell it, see,
use all those senses,
but you also have to, it seems to me, and I'm no expert on the law of attraction, but what I'm picking up from you, you have to let go of a lot of your fears. You have to just put them aside, trust that it will happen. That's really hard to do for most people because, we're all about safety, security, job security, money, shelter, love, support. You almost have to be okay, I guess, on your own. Like people, for example, who haven't got the ideal job, they have to kind of just trust that it is out there. They're going to make it happen. People who are not in a relationship, who desperately would love to be in one, I guess to some extent they have to let go of the fear. If you let go of the fear, then you have to be okay with yourself, don't you?
Right.
And whatever happens, you still have yourself. You still have your life. It's still going to you can still make things work. I mean,
Yeah.
how does one let go of that fear?
Yeah. And I think that's where the piece comes in of quieting the mind. Because the mind is like, a lot of people talk about ego. And I've heard Wayne Dyer say ego is edging God out. We can replace God with the universe or however we believe, but something that's greater than ourselves. And with the law of attraction, that's the spiritual piece. We want to connect with, a trust, like you said, a trust or a faith. It takes something like that, or quieting of the mind, because the mind is the ego that's keeping us fear-based. If we can quiet the mind, we can bypass the mind to a higher plane of where faith or information could come back into the source, into the heart. So that's where that piece of meditation or those exercises, anything to quiet the mind, then we can get to a place where it's going to be okay. Mm-hmm. We're not fearful. We don't need to be in fear. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. And what is it about the universe that will bring these things to us? Is it because if you believe that it's a benevolent force that is bringing stuff to you, and even though it may not feel good, there may be a message in there, there may be a growth opportunity. But what is it about, what the universe offers and our putting our antenna out and our request out and trying to align it? What is it that's, what is that kind of connection there? Do you have
well, there's a metaphysical energy. If we get into it, we're all just energy. If you look at Einstein and those people who worked with the physics, it's all the surfaces are either particles or waves. So we're getting into a whole different ball game of what's the energy made out of. So if we're nothing but energy, but so condensed energy that we appear as physical, we can connect and manipulate our energy, right? We manipulate the energy. We change the thoughts, we change our energy. Whether I think I can or I can't think I can't, I'm going to prove it. Try to prove something that won't happen. Yes, it's not going to happen. Try to prove something that's going to happen, it's going to happen.
It sounds as though we get in our way so much of the time.
We do.
With our own negative thinking.
Yes.
And that's the ego, the chatterbox mind, the you're not good enough.
The monkey mind,
The monkey mind. You're just, coming from lack all the time. And if we can push that aside and just have a greater belief that we are more, so much more, and that we are energetic beings having the physical experience.
Exactly.
And that energy that we are part of is benevolent. By and large. And if we can just open ourselves up to the energy, maybe there's more of a flow that happens, and it wants to bring good things into our lives, but we just have to open ourselves up.
Yes, exactly.
Maybe that's how it works. You talked about the difference between desire and need. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Again, that has to do with how attached are we to the outcome.
Okay.
Right. So if we're really attached to whatever it is we want. You were talking about relationships. If we're really attached to, if I don't get a relationship or a partner in my life by this time, the clock is ticking, I won't be able to have kids, we're so attached to that outcome that it becomes a need. It becomes, again, moving into fear-based. I can't have it. And that's what I'm going to create, more of what I can't have. But if we're going, wouldn't it be nice to have someone in my life that I could share with all these adventures that I have planned that I want to do? Again, I'm not attached to it. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. It's okay. I enjoy being with myself.
I think that's key.
Yeah.
I think that's key. Because then everything relaxes.
Yeah.
If at the end of the day you have yourself to come home to and you're okay with that, or you're working with making that better, then you can relax to a certain extent, because you're never going to be alone. You've got yourself. You're in good
Yes.
company, as it were. If you can enjoy your own company, you're in good company
Mhm.
to some extent.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
okay, that's really interesting. Yes, great.
Mm.
Thank you. If you would
Yeah.
like to come a little closer
Mhm.
so we can make sure that we capture you. Thank you.
I think Angie touched on some of my questions, but
Mm.
in the like aspect of like letting go, so like your example of having a friend who is trying to manifest a partner. I have a
Mm.
friend and I've been working with her a
Mm.
lot on that, but like I think she struggles a lot of the times with she's trying to be doing this for such a long time and it's hard to trust divine timing. You get frustrated with things. So like what would be your advice around that? And then what would be also your advice on how to let go of attachment? Because I think a
Right.
lot of us struggle with that. Yes, I agree.
Is
We're all
the
attached to the outcome,
attachment? Yeah.
but how do you let go of that? Are there like practical, concrete
Right.
strategies that you'd recommend?
Right.
Yes. So just kind of curious.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Yeah.
Great
Sometimes.
questions. Thank you.
Yeah. A lot of times, like you're saying, we get stuck in our own way. You know, that self-sabotage. The thoughts that keep playing out is the I can't. And the best route is to help that client to imagine what is it like. Well, who do you spend time with? What are the qualities that you like spending time with that person? What are some of the things that you really enjoy? What if you were to take, you know, I love that Eat, Pray, Love, that story, you know, because she found the guy that she wanted in her life, but she wasn't attached to finding a guy. She was more attached to just enjoying the time by myself. You know, does she enjoy being by herself and enjoying herself, her own company? Because a lot of times when we're so attached to, I need somebody else, what is it that she needs from that other person that she can't find in herself? You know, and start to explore what is it that, you know, she wants within herself first. What are qualities that would help her to say, you know, I love me. I love traveling. You know, do I need somebody to travel with? You know, and start getting into, you know, has she been in a relationship before? Was it working? You know, Angie's great. You know, let's put out the qualities. Let's make a list of things that I really like about this person or that person. And again, get away from the details of I need and this is what I want and the I can't, and help her to start to broaden it a little bit. Maybe she's too tight into what it is she wants, and to start expanding on the general qualities of what it's like to enjoy life.
I don't know if this would help, but we had Susan Lynn join us. She's joined us a couple of times. She's a psychic medium. She's had many near-death experiences. And she's talked a couple of times about the idea of stepping into a parallel universe and making that universe exactly what you're actually wanting your desire to be. So in your friend's case, where she wants to be in a happy, fulfilling, lasting, loving relationship, if she can step into that universe as though this is exactly what she has right now, she has met her person and she's living that. And what does that feel like on a daily basis? It feels like waking up in the morning, maybe next to him. It feels like, you know, constant touch, just knowing that he's there, whatever that happens to be for her. If she can start to sort of touch that kind of reality, maybe that, to me, that sort of is a little bit easier to try to understand than just being here and trying to visualize. You know, actually stepping into it.
Yeah, that's part of the
she uses that all the time. Just step into that alternate universe where you have become a successful author, where you have people seeking you, where you are a successful filmmaker and they're asking you for your next screenplay, where you are the artist, where you are the dancer, where you are whatever it is that you want to be. And people are sort of knocking on your door, seeking you out. And maybe it becomes a little easier that way to create that reality.
And exactly, that's what that VAC is about.
Right.
Stepping into that, you know, acting as if, what are you going to see? What are you going to hear? What are you going to, you know, you can even do tastes and smells. It's also about the vision board, you know, start looking at things. Oh yeah, this is, I would love to be traveling here.
Yes.
You know, maybe we're traveling together here.
Yes.
You know, bring in a picture of times that she was very, very happy. Herself being very, very, very happy.
I mean, one that I think Wayne Dyer talked about had to do with money. I think at the very beginning of his career, things weren't going so well, and he was always going to the mailbox hoping that the check for the last assignment was there, and it just wasn't. And there would always be disappointment, and it was coming from, I'm not going to have enough to be able to keep my family and survive. And then he decided, no, I'm just going to do the work that I feel driven to do. That's my life purpose. And I know that the money is just going to come. I know that the money will be there. And then he would go to the mailbox and there would always be checks there. You know, something would always come from somewhere because he had a faith in that he was on the right path and somehow the universe would look after him in the way that the universe, and we hear in the Bible, you know, I take care of the birds and I take care of the birds and the animals, and that they don't have to worry about being fed. It's always there for them. Well, you know, for humans, just trust that it's going to come. That's a very, that's why it's called a leap of faith, I guess.
Yeah. And it's also, you know, it brings up a very good point that if you want to have a loving relationship, be loving.
That's the other thing.
You know, if you want to learn,
that makes it,
be the teacher.
Yeah.
You know, so.
And actually, Mike made that point some time ago. He sent me a link to a wonderful Indian guru, a lady in this case. And I think the main point was, well, you know, everybody wants the universe to be loving. Everybody wants it to be a sort of, you know, interesting, enjoyable place to be. We all want to receive love, but the trouble is everybody is in waiting to receive mode. Nobody is really in giving mode.
Yes.
So her point was, give what you actually want to receive. Become the love that you want to receive in your life, because it's the law of attraction. Maybe I call it the law of reciprocity. What you give out, you tend to get. You go down the street and you might encounter a stranger. If you smile, most people will smile back, right? Yes. If you frown, they'll probably stay away from you. So what we give out, if we give out the love that we want to receive back, we're going to be much more likely to receive it back. So it's the idea of, you know, if you send out Christmas cards, and people send out Christmas cards anymore, it's like, nobody sends me any Christmas cards. Or did I send anybody any Christmas cards? Maybe I didn't send that many. Let me send out a bunch of Christmas cards, and guess what? A bunch of Christmas cards come back. That's a trite example, but it makes the point, I think.
Exactly.
Let me ask you about the present. You know, we're always nowadays talking about the cliche of, become a cliche, but it isn't a cliche. It's very important to be in the present moment because that's really all we have. So what is it that's so magical about the present when it comes to the law of attraction? Well, we're having to leave the past behind and not think so much about the future, because the future is going to take care of itself, because the future is really the present continuously kind of creating itself, right? So tell me a little bit more about the present.
Yeah, you just answered the question. Exactly.
You know more than I do about this stuff.
Living in the present. Right? Our thoughts are still happening. Our emotions are still happening, right? If there's a desire, like you want to be in a relationship, right? We can be loving, right? We can create that by envisioning what we're going to be seeing in the future, what we're going to be feeling in the future, right? And the future happens, you know. Tomorrow's only a day away, you know. So we're going to keep creating it. But it's about being what you want to be in your future, right? What's that? Be all you can be. You know, living now to create what you love to see in the future, and it just happens. It just happens. We're opening up the Aladdin's lamp. You know, I would like this. Make 3 wishes, and I'll wish this. But it's living that, you know, as if that's happened.
And I think there has to be a conscious decision to let go of fear. You know, it's like they say, happiness is an inside job, and you almost have to make the decision, I want to be happy. I am going to be happy. Well, it's the same thing with fear. I'm going to let go of the fear, because coming from fear just holds me back all the time.
Yeah.
So I think, this life is very challenging, as we all know way too well. And
Is
there
it
almost has to be, there almost has to be a decision to, okay, well, I am going to, I'm here. I don't necessarily understand why, what my purpose is, but, let me just do the best I can. Let me put my fear aside and let me do the best I can in trying to live the kind of life that I want to have, and let me put out into the universe what I'd like to receive back. Maybe there are just some principles there that will always work, when in doubt. Yes, we have a question,
Okay.
a comment, perhaps. Go ahead. Thank you.
Actually, you just answered it.
Oh, no,
All right.
please.
That was very
Okay.
helpful. Thank you.
Oh,
You
you're
don't
welcome.
look even close to 65.
Thank you.
So how do you balance this with other life circumstances and relationships? So for example, you've got an elderly parent you're taking care of, you've got special needs kids, you
Yeah.
have other familial obligations. So it's not just you. And to kind of tie it into the MVE, sometimes what you're getting may not be what you want, but it could be what you need.
Exactly.
And those are the kind of things that you almost have to have it hit you in the face before you realize, okay, I need to, it's not just what I want. I need to work on certain issues. So how do you do that balance?
Yeah, that takes like a different level
That question.
of thinking. Yes, thank you for that question. And it's one that we can't quite understand sometimes, because I think, Angie, you were talking about it. Sometimes we come in with predetermined lessons for our life, and it might be, I want to experience what it's like to have, say, a child with special needs. And we're not consciously aware of that. It's a commitment that, it was something that was in the DNA before it came about, when we're talking about near-death experiences. So it becomes with almost a higher level of thinking to be able to accept some of that and to go, okay, this is my challenge, or this is my purpose in life. I have two different kids, if I can share. The one came with some special needs, or, I guess I could call it special needs, because he had more challenges in his life versus the other one, And for me, I look at it not as the good or bad, but these are lessons that I need to learn so I can learn to love no matter who comes into my life. Can I learn to let go and let this child be who he is and help that child to be the best he can be? And can I, still love and give the attention to the other child? So they were my life's purposes, so I can learn love. And it's, like I said, it's a higher level of thinking. It's like, why do bad things happen to good people? It's one of the hardest things that you can kind of explain with the law of attraction. Did you have any other way to best explain that? Well, that is such a high level.
Yeah, in other words, you're asking, why are some life challenges such doozies? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, and it can be that way, yes.
Yeah. Well, it's trying to make sense of what seems nonsensical to some extent, right? Why have I been dished out this huge challenge? I mean, in the spiritual world, in the near-death experience world, the wisdom seems to be, well, we kind of chose this, which is a hard pill to swallow. Why would I choose that? But that seems to be what people who touch the other side and come back say. And maybe, okay, it's a hypothesis. If you did choose something like that, then what was it that you were trying to learn? Because the idea is, this is Earth School. We come here to learn and to grow, and it's about love. That's the currency. And so, maybe you did choose, compassion. Maybe you chose to be with somebody who was less able to look after themselves, that required more of you, which meant, a lot of compassion, a lot of putting your needs to one side. But there's great love and wonder in all of that. And also, we can learn a lot from people who are special needs. Now, how do you reconcile that with the law of attraction? Well, maybe we attracted that. Maybe we planned that. Can we grow from it? Well, I guess we can. So maybe that does answer it to some extent. But you have to be able to step away and have a faith in that there's something much bigger at play that we really don't understand, because we're just looking at this from this little myopic keyhole, if you will. But there's a much greater tapestry out there, and we're not sure how this thread fits in with that thread. And maybe, I guess there's faith in that there's a larger plan, perhaps, and more of a, just a humble acceptance and making the most of it and trying to see how one can grow from it as best as possible.
And if I can add too, it's not about that other person's journey. That other person is journeying and having that life experience for a purpose for them to learn. It's about our journey. It wasn't about, my son's issue more than how do I help my son. What it's about me.
Yes.
How am I learning to have a better, more fulfilled relationship with him?
Yeah. And I mean, this is a bit out there, but I also have heard people from the near-death experience kind of philosophize about, sometimes souls choose to come into an incarnation on this plane and be terribly handicapped. And a lot of the kids in Africa who are starving, I mean, and in some ways they kind of earn extra brownie points, if you will, by giving themselves to the earth plane in those circumstances, because it's a sacrifice to them, but what they're doing it for the greater good. What they're really trying to do is sensitize the rest of the world to their plight so that we can grow and learn. And as a result of that kind of sacrifice, they ascend, if you will. They become much more spiritually enlightened because they've carried a super heavy load. And so they're deserving of going to a higher plane as a result of it. Now, it's a hypothesis, right? And it's one that kind of on some levels makes sense. And there's nothing really out there. I mean, our religion doesn't necessarily kind of explain this kind of stuff. But yet the spiritual world, the NDE kind of world, tries to. And so I think that's why a lot of people are interested in the topic, because in some ways it does provide some type of answers to the inexplicable, Anyway, we have
did say the meek will inherit the earth and other similar phrases, right?
The meek will inherit the earth.
Yeah.
Absolutely, was said by Jesus. Absolutely, yeah. So there you go. They get their reward, as it were. Well, we're almost at the top of the hour. We have just a couple more minutes. If anybody has any examples, including the people online, of where the law of attraction has worked for them, if they would like to share that, that would be wonderful. Anybody here want to share some last words? Not necessarily. Okay.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Oh, you're welcome.
Which was
Thank
the
you.
most inspiring one of the whole bunch.
Thank you so much.
What does, in the last minute or so that we have left, how does it continue to inspire you? How does the law of attraction work day to day for you now that you've been able to bring it into your life?
Well,
how does it continue to work?
I live it every day. I try to consciously live in what is working for me today. How do I feel? To be consciously aware of what I'm feeling and be able to share, what I'm feeling and work through it if I'm not feeling in that way, to do that whole process of stop, breathe, reflect, and choose. Meditating every day. I do that every day as well. And I look at that experience from my past as a gift now. One of the greatest gifts I had was when I began to learn about PSYCH-K. It's a fabulous tool, and the teacher that I have is now getting back out there again. I'd love to have her come at one point. We can get a hold of her and actually even talk about it. But she didn't exercise with me because I still had a little bit of the residuals from that experience, and and thoughts about him and maybe anger and whatnot. And I wanted to truly release that. So we did a PSYCH-K process. And during that PSYCH-K process, I sat there and I envisioned him again with the talking about what would you see, what you would feel. I literally saw him now as an adult, and I sent him love. So I could feel that love. And I sent him love, and I just saw him as an adult having the best day of his life. And the love just came back to me. You know, talk about giving and receiving. And from that point on, all those emotions, the regret, the anger, the experience, you know, the things that CBT didn't help me, was just finally released. It felt like my last step towards my healing. And so I now look at that as my greatest gift in life. You know, he brought me the compassion, the love, he brought me a lot of attraction. He brought me the fact that I can live again. I can release. I can let go. I'm not living it, being afraid anymore. You know, I move through those. I'm outgoing now. I'm, you know, I don't feel lonely. I might not have another love in my life, but I don't feel lonely. I feel loved.
One of the things that occurred to me was that, in Christianity, and please chime in with regard to other world religions and mainstream religions, but in Christianity, we do have ask and you will receive, right? I mean, that's definitely something. And that's actually, is that not touching on the law of attraction?
It is, yes. Like I said, that's what they say. Ask
and you so I mean, do we know that in Judaism or Hinduism, Buddhism, any of those other world religions, do we know if there's something similar to that? I'm just curious, because if it exists in Christianity, it probably exists in other mainstream religions. I just don't know enough about them.
I know a lot about Buddhism, and it's also in Hinduism, but there's the wheel of suffering, turning the wheel.
Turning the wheel of suffering.
Yeah, so you may think like by expressing your anger, you're expressing yourself. I got to express myself, but you might really be turning the wheel. That's like the reflect part. You know, what is this energy telling me to do? So I see that as a similar thing. I mean, of course, the whole thing about karma is you reap what you sow, which is in the Bible also.
Which is also in the Bible, exactly.
And like you were saying, law of attraction is just not about the law of attraction. There is so many different natural laws.
Yes.
You know, so it's only the tip of the iceberg.
Yes.
I have one, as above, so below.
Exactly. Yes. The law of opposites. There's a law of opposites. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's
Over
that.
there.
We have to leave that one for another time.
Yes.
Thank you so much, everyone. We are running a little bit over, so let's go ahead and just say thank you so much
Oh,
again
thank you.
for
Thank
Ellen
you for inviting me.
coming. Thank you to everybody who's joined us online. I see an applause there by somebody. Thank you guys. And then, of course, we have a wonderful group of people here that we're going to visit with in just a couple of minutes. So thank you again for everybody for joining us. And please join us again next month. We will have Vincent Jenner talking about his life experiences and the work that he's doing at the moment. He presented at the IANDS conference just a couple of weeks ago. So he's going to be joining us virtually. So thank you, everybody. We'll see you again next time. Take care.